Go.
Hi, everybody. Okay, so this is the April 28th meeting of the Trinity County Fire Safe Council. And so welcome. I'm glad to have you all here. It's nice to see some new faces. So since there are some new faces, let's go ahead and do introductions. So we'll start with the people in the room here. So my name is Carol Fall, and I'm the chair of the Fire Safe Council and the assistant chief of the Trinity Center Volunteer Fire Department. So to my left, we have
Amelia Flights. I'm the Trinity County Resource Conservation District Watershed Program Manager and the Trinity County Fire Safe Council Coordinator. To Jill.
Jill Cox, Board of Supervisors.
Kelly Sheen, District Manager for the Trinity County Resource Conservation District.
Bethany Llewellyn, hiding up campaign here. Trinity County Resource Conservation District Forest Health AmeriCorps member.
I am Chris Cole, Trinity County RCD Forest Health Program Manager.
Okay, so we're going to start handing it off to those of you in Zoom land. I'm going to pick a name and then for you to introduce yourself, and then you pick another name to hand off to. So I'm going to start with Kenneth Baldwin.
Kenneth Baldwin, I'm an RPF registered professional forester, landowner, and ne'er-do-well, and I'm handing off to Randy Parrish, she, her.
Good afternoon, Randy Paris. I'm taking Dylan Sheedy's position at the Watershed Center as the Forestry and Fuel Program Manager. He is actually here today. It's his last day, so I'll give him an opportunity. I'll hand it off to Dylan Sheedy.
Yeah, hello everyone. This will be my last Fire Safe Council meeting for Trinity County, and it's been a absolute pleasure to work with you all and learn and grow over these last three years, and I'll miss it a lot. So thank you all.
Hey, don't say that quite so
Yeah,
fast.
we're going to miss you.
We will miss you, and we might bring you back in about a year to teach us some things.
I'd be happy to contribute to the conversation.
You're all baby faced and shaved. I don't think I've ever seen you look all professional like.
I know, I'm preparing for Monday. I gotta practice my shaving.
Okay, Randy, pick somebody.
I will pass it to Jerry Cousins.
Hi, everybody. Jerry Cousins here, collaborative member. And I will pass it off to Pat Frost.
So Pat Frost was out of picture today, various roles, but I've been a Fire Safe Council member since 1999.
All right, and pick
And
somebody.
I'll turn it over to Rick Lutweiler.
Hi there, Rick Lutweiler, volunteer firefighter for Lewiston and candidate for the Board of Supervisors and just an interested party.
All right, pick a name.
Let's see, Aaron.
Good afternoon, Aaron Hathaway, working CAL FIRE in the Shasta Trinity unit. First meeting I'm attending for you guys. I deal with the fuels abatement and all the mapping for CAL FIRE for Shasta Trinity unit. And so I work alongside with the Fire Safe Councils and the battalion chiefs within those individual battalions, help get people together and come up with plans.
Great.
And new here, so I'm pass it off to Chief Nick Chaponi.
Hey, how's it going? Nick Chaponi, CAL FIRE Battalion 6, battalion chief there. Reception's a little spotty where I'm at, so I'll hang in here as long as I can. And shoot, let me go back to our picture. I can see somebody. Did Rick go already?
Yeah, let's go to Dave. We'll go to Dave Jaramillo with CAL FIRE. How about that?
All right, Dave, you're up.
Hey, Dave Jaramillo, CAL FIRE Vegetation Management Program, Shasta Trinity Unit.
Okay. Let's see, do we do,
Okay, let's go to Taylor.
how about Taylor?
Hi, everyone. I'm the acting district conservationist for Trinity County Natural Resources Conservation Service, and I will be acting here until end of July. Happy to be here.
Okay. Let's see, how about Marinson's? I see a Marinson's iPhone. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, it's Mike Aronson with Sierra Pacific Industries.
Oh, Mike Aronson. Okay, great. Welcome. Thank you. So did we miss anybody or
Larry.
Oh, Larry. Sorry, Larry.
Hey, Larry Glass, Safe Alternatives for a Forest Environment from Southern Trinity County on top of South Fork Mountain.
Okay, so is there anybody we've missed as far as introductions go? Okay, so next thing, do we have any additions or changes to the agenda?
I have a proposed addition to add and then carry forward to just add an item as the coordinator's report to just give an update on what I've done in the last month and what we have planned to take up a little less room on the agenda. I can fit many things in one line.
So under
Currently, I have everything under discussions, so we could just put it right before or after discussions before we get to project updates, somewhere in there.
Okay. All right, so we're going to add a Fire Safe Council Coordinator report to the agenda. Okay, so we don't have any presentations scheduled for today. So we're going to move right into discussions. Let's start with Wildfire Preparedness Day. So we're starting with Wildfire Preparedness Day, May 7th.
All right, so May 7th, Wildfire Preparedness Day. Woohoo! Hope everybody's excited. So the whole first week of May is Wildfire Preparedness Week by the state of California governor. May in Trinity County is Wildfire Awareness Month. National Wildfire Preparedness Day is May 7th, and Trinity County's Wildfire Preparedness Day is May 7th. So we tried to do a fair in 2020 and COVID hit and we didn't get to do it. And so this is our first year hosting the fair in Weaverville. We hope to host it in Hayfork next year and keep kind of either switching back and forth or moving it around. And so I have about 14 booths that have signed up at this point in time. And I still have a couple questions. So if you're out there and I don't call your name, please let me know. So I have the Forest Service and SPI are going to share. We have the McConnell Foundation, the RCD, the Fire Safe Council, of course, the Watershed Research and Training Center, Lewiston Sparkies, Downrivers Support Services, North Coast Unified Air Quality Management District, CAL FIRE, Lower Trinity Prescribed Burn Association, Willow Creek Fire Safe Council, NRCS, Trinity County Master Gardeners, Public Health, and Trinity County Office of Emergency Services. Still waiting to hear back if Red Cross can get enough volunteers to have their table. I did receive an interest from a vendor. He does solar ovens and he's gonna come up as well. He's out of Sacramento. Rob Gross never got back to me once I emailed him, so I don't know if he's coming or not. And then BLM, nobody from BLM is on today. I don't know if they are coming or not. Does anybody?
Did you say CAL FIRE?
Yes, CAL FIRE. Yep. North Coast Air Quality Management District would like to share their booth with somebody. It's just one person and a little bit of like half a table. So is anybody interested in sharing with them? Otherwise, I can still come with RCD. It's not a big deal.
They could go with the Master Gardeners. It doesn't quite fit.
I'm sure we can make room at the NRCS table too.
Okay, sweet.
Hey, Amelia, What about that group from downriver that does controlled burns, private?
The lower.
Yes, so the Lower Trinity Prescribed Burn Association is coming.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yep. So we're working to finalize the presentations. And so I need to get an idea of who the 10 to 15 minute presentations, who's giving them to coordinate the schedule. So right now at 10 a.m., Pat and I are giving the Firewise Communities presentation to bring more awareness to Firewise communities and also present the 2021 certifications to one representative for all of the VFDs. We are going to do at 10:15 and 10:30, I'm going to discuss the Neighborhood Ambassador Program and the Local Area Advisors Program. And I'm welcome to shorten those up to one presentation if I can get enough people to sign up. 11 a.m. is the landowner resources section. So we're going to have NRCS present on environmental quality incentives program. Taylor, I may have missed it, but Tiffany was going to send me the actual title and a brief description of her, a brief bio. I don't think I've received that yet.
Okay, I'll remind her.
Thank you. At 11:15, we have Firewise Landscaping by the Trinity County Master Gardeners with Carol leading it. Do you want it Trinity County Master Gardeners or do you want your name?
Master Gardeners.
Okay. Then at 11:30, North Coast Unified Air Quality Management District is going to talk about air quality index and smoke management plans. I have openings so far at 10:45 and 11:45. All of the noon hour, I need to fill with resources. We will have some door prizes. So we're going to pull the door prizes at the top of the hour at noon for the people that have been there in the morning. You got to be there to win. And then again at 2, be there to win. So North Coast Unified Air Quality Management District is going to have smoke alarms. And then I was going to go to ACE and see if they would donate some fire extinguishers or something else like that.
Did Cal Fire talk about CFIP if we're gonna have equip?
Can't hear Kelly.
He asked if Cal Fire would be able to talk about CFIP if we are presenting on equip.
Is this his name, Blake? What's the guy down in
I know
Reading that does that?
Sean is the one.
Sean. Shane, you got it.
I don't know. I can talk to Xander too. I know Xander and Molly both attended, and I think Tiffany as well attended a meeting to get the download on CFIP with Shane. Bethany, did you go to that? Okay. So if Dave, would you be able to talk about CFIP on May 7th or have somebody else talk about CFIP?
I could probably talk about it. I could talk to Shane a little bit more. I do know that there's quite a bit of funding going through that program right now, so I think they're really trying to highlight it. So yeah, you could put me on there, and I could talk to Shane if he can't come up.
Okay, thank you. Rick, it's at the Schneider Highland Meadows from 10 to 2 on May 7th.
Thank you.
Yep. Nick or Aaron, was anybody going to be able to talk about, just defensible space or home hardening or anything like that? I know UCCE usually talks about home hardening, but since the forester has left and gone to another district, we no longer have that support right now.
Yeah, so I'm in the process of asking some of my defensible space inspectors if they have the ability to make that date.
Okay.
I don't know for sure if I'm going to be able to. I'm going to try, but I got a lot of stuff going on that weekend. So the hope is that we can be there because there's also going to be a change in our defensible space program starting January 1st as well, where we're adding a third zone, a 0 to 5 foot zone, where right now there's only a 0 to 30 and a 30 to 100. So we're adding one zone, and I would like them to speak a little bit to that, so everybody's aware of that there.
Sounds great.
So yes, the hope is to have it. If you would just, I see Amelia, I don't know if that's you, sent me an email about that. If you would just time slot, so that way I can let my DSI inspectors know or myself know, and we'll try to get someone there to manage that.
Okay.
And
Thanks.
we'll try and make sure we're tying in with Cheryl as well.
Yep.
Amelia, if we're barring any issues, I would like to have an engine there, though we'll still be one engine and we're kind of getting busy. So it sucks. I like to make obligations, but our obligations are super flexible depending on the alarm.
Understood. Yep, well, we're gonna have you guys park in the back so that you can get out if you need to. Then at 1 p.m. we have kids hour, and so that's gonna start with a story time featuring a local book by a local author. They Slept at Our School by Catherine Larson, and so we'll be reading that aloud. Then we're gonna do fire extinguisher practice, and then the RCD is still working on the last little bit of time to identify which game we want to play. We haven't settled on one. And so that's all for the kids. Whiskey Town, that's what I didn't have on here. That's what I forgot. Whiskey Town National Park is planning to attend and participate, and they are going to run their Junior Ranger program. I'm still waiting to get a time on that, but that runs for about 45 minutes. So that could also fill some of this space if we need as well.
Did you talk to the Forest Service about either bringing Ivan or having the book to read? You know, Ivan, the mule.
I did not, honestly. They've been very hard to get any response from, and I only found out yesterday that they were gonna show up at all. So I have been asking about Smokey, to no response. I have been asking just about general participation as well. So I
And so
don't know.
who are you talking to, Tara or
Tara, Tim, Sandy, Glenn,
Mike?
I didn't talk to Mike about Ivan, but I do have a small update on that side on Ivan things. We have proposed, and we're waiting to hear back, that the calendar that we're creating, so we have the monthly calendars that go out in the paper and that we put on our social media. And so for our hard copy calendar that we're working on for 2023, we have asked them if they want to develop 12 cartoons for us. So one for each month of Ivan doing silly things and having a Firewise catchphrase, fire safe catchphrase for each month based on our pre-identified monthly themes.
Topics.
So we're waiting to hear back if Mike said he was game, but he was waiting to hear back from Gail, is that correct? Who's the artist, to see if she would have the time and availability to do it. I don't know. I know they don't like Ivan to go to things because he's sassy and he kicks.
Oh, yeah, I know.
So they don't
Actually,
usually actually bring Ivan. They like the other ones. They like to show off the other ones, but I can ask about the book. I can ask about the book.
yeah, he does.
Ivan for a day.
If not, we can at least have it out, because there will be
Yeah.
the kids zone as well. So this is kids hour,
I
but we'll
have-
have
I
it
have some-
available in kids zone.
I have some copies of the book.
Okay.
There might be a door prize too.
That would be a great door prize.
Yeah, Ivan. Ivan is short for Ivan the Terrible. He does. He bites, he kicks.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions or ideas for additional topics that we should discuss? I did invite State Farm. They're not available. I was going to call some of my realtor friends to see if they could do a short presentation on how the defensible space is working into sales and how they're working through it, just to educate the general public. Am I missing anything?
Two
Pat
things.
has something as well.
So instead of State Farm, what about Jennifer Aho with Trinity Insurance.
Okay, I will give her a call.
She's just moved into the red house, or, they just changed locations.
Okay.
So Rick's wife, Sue, is a realtor. Maybe she would like to. Rick, do you think Sue would like to participate?
She might. She's not here right now, but I can ask.
Okay.
So two of the things we usually have at our fire safe days up in Trinity Center, one of them is we try to have the vendor who has the barricade or thermogel, so I think talk to it's Christine Camera's husband, Chris Camera, right? But they'll either send like I can supply like a display, but they send like materials like on how you use those foam sprays on your house. So that people have been interested in that. And the other one is so for the following week, we're going to be installing the fire resistant vents at the OOF hall. And so I can bring some of the vents. And so maybe having, if you have a home hardening, like if CAL FIRE is going to be talking about the 5-foot non-combustible zone, if you add some home hardening information there, like if you show people what a fire resistant vent looks like, I don't think you'll get any of the vendors because they're far away.
Aaron here again with CAL FIRE. Sorry, we do have some of those Volcom vents and stuff that we will bring with us in our booth there.
Okay, perfect. You got it covered. That's exactly what I was thinking.
So we'll have some of that, and we'll have some of the new decking that is approved, and a couple little knickknacks that people can pick up and take a look at.
Perfect. That's great. Okay.
Awesome. Okay. Questions for Wildfire Preparedness Day, May 7th. No, okay. So then the other wildfire preparedness events coming up. So May 14th is the training centers, correct?
Yeah.
And what is your title for it?
So we're going to have a fire safe home demonstration day because we've had our fire safe days. So we're going to have a series of booths that have the usual information. RCD's coming up. We'll have our usual stuff, and I'll coordinate with Amelia so we're not overlapping. But the other thing we're going to do is walk across the street from the fire hall is the Odd Fellows Hall, which is a state historic building. It's 140 years old. We are going to replace the current vents with those fire resistant vents, at least the foundation vents, and we're going to put in 3 to 5 foot non-combustible zone around the foundation of the building. So hopefully we'll get a bunch of volunteers with wheelbarrows and shovels and stuff to see things that they could do to do home hardening. Then we have 2 residences that are going to be open for people to visit. One of them is a guy who has installed rooftop sprinklers, and he has installed the the fire resistant vents. He has some other features he wants just to show people so people can go to his house and talk to him. And then we have another house where they've been pretty good about defensible space, so people can go talk to the guy about defensible space. So it's more like a try to show people what they can do kind of day. The booths will be there for information, but we wanted to move into okay, it's easy for you to take the next step.
Nice.
So that's on May 14th.
And that's, say what?
Trinity Center.
So, okay.
And then on May 14th, there's also a community meeting in Willow Creek at the Lower Trinity Lower Trinity River Prescribed Burn Association and Willow Creek Fire Safe Council are putting that on. I think it's really through Lower Trinity Prescribed Burn Association. And that's in the afternoon in Willow Creek on May 14th. Then on May 21st is the Willow Creek Fire Safe Council Firewise and Youth Education Day. And that's happening again in Willow Creek down at, I think it's at the Veterans Park. And that's being supported by the Willow Creek Fire Safe Council. So those are the events that I have on my schedule that are currently coming up for Wildfire Awareness Month as a whole. The other thing that's coming on my agenda is I'm going to do a community meeting in Coffee Creek on May 16th. They've asked for an update from the county on the stages of cleanup after the river complex. What's the plan for the road and the slide? What's happening there? So I've invited many of the Trinity County office heads, department heads to join me at that meeting. And it's just to familiarize themselves with the Trinity County Fire Safe Council. So people in Coffee Creek didn't know that much about the Fire Safe Council or the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. And that's just due to we haven't had the community meetings in Coffee Creek in the past. We've done most of them in Trinity Center. So I'm going to Coffee Creek. And so hopefully we'll get a good turnout there. At this point in time, I do not intend to invite the Forest Service, only because they got bashed pretty well at the last meeting that they had up there, and I need to have a different tone for this meeting. So that's what we're going with.
Do you have times on any of your staff? You've mentioned 4 different events and the location, but not times on that.
So Trinity Centers is from 10 to 12 at the Trinity Center Fire Station.
Okay.
And then the other ones are in the flyers that are in the email.
Okay, great.
I don't know them off the top of my
That's
head.
fine. Thank you.
And then questions for the upcoming events. Okay. Ready to go next item?
Okay, so discussions B, local area advisors and neighborhood ambassador program.
Right on. So for local area advisors and neighborhood ambassador program, we're doing our first review after the 30th, so at the end of this month. I do have flyers here and for both programs, and I have printed sheets for anybody that needs flyers or anything. Just let me know. I'm happy to mail physical flyers to your office. I will be putting them up as I drive different places for my normal work, but we're going to continue rolling applications on these. So the local area advisors, we're going to try to review at least once a month moving forward, especially before fire season. And then after that, we'll move into it quarterly. The neighborhood ambassadors will also be quarterly. And I'm working on getting the orientation for both of those programs developed and up and running. So there'll be basic ICS 100 or 200, like an S180 or an L180, just some of the basic information for both of these programs, and then more targeted orientation for what our intent is for the 2 different programs as well. Well, we'll have an in-person meeting for the local area advisors. It will be with Ed Presley of Trinity County OES and myself, discussing our intent, what our roles are and what their roles are. And then with the neighborhood ambassadors, that'll just be in-house at the RCD. We'll just run that orientation, and it's mostly communication and outreach in that one.
So have you thought about extending it to like May 14th so that people at the Wildfire Preparedness Day, you could talk to them about it and see who might be interested in applying?
So we're extending it indefinitely, so they can still, yeah.
Because I already had some people, the original date in the newspaper was like April 1st.
Yeah.
And I had some people say they weren't going to apply because they thought the deadline had passed. So then.
Yeah, the one that were in the paper last week, extended the deadline, and then we'll do another announcement to say that we've moved them to rolling.
Okay, I think that'd be good.
Yeah. Current outreach strategies, we're moving towards mailers. So we're going to be working to get some of this also wrapped into a mailer down the line. That's what I have. Questions on the local area advisors or the neighborhood ambassadors program?
Yeah, this is Kenneth. I've got a question about the local area advisors. I think I read in the paper that this was for towns, certain towns like Douglas City, Weaverville and all. I would definitely be interested in doing that for the Indian Creek drainage out my way, because I probably know more than anybody about the road system out here, and I don't know a lot about the residents anymore, but I have a fair idea of who's living up, that people are living up certain roads. And so is that the position available for a limited area like Indian Creek drainage?
Yes.
Or is it
apply?
gotta
There's
be for like Douglas City?
No, we're looking at larger communities, but also smaller ones. So when you go through the other application, there's a big list and then it says other, and you can write in what community is you intend to represent, because some of them would like to represent the tribal nations and some of them. So it's not, we're not being so black and white with it that it's only Douglas City and you have to be in the Douglas City one and that's it. So please apply.
Okay.
Yeah, Kenneth, you're not off the hook.
Ha! I'm never off the hook, not until I die.
That's true. Okay, any questions for Amelia about local area advisors or neighborhood ambassadors? Okay, all right, so we'll move on to the Forest Service community meetings.
So I've attended the Trinity Center. I did not attend the Weaverville. I attended the Junction City Forest Service meeting, the Hay Fork community meeting this week, and then I'm going to the High and Palm tonight. One of the things that I've heard in the 3 meetings that I have attended is lack of response during initial attack, and overall just lack of resources, people watching one tree that's burning and not having the Forest Service respond to go in and put that one tree out, and then it becomes a bigger fire and they can't catch it. So I just wanted to bring that up. I did get an update last night or on Tuesday that Hay Fork and High and Palm did sign their local mutual aid agreements with the Forest Service. So those are now in place with a 3-hour initial attack time.
But no reimbursement.
No reimbursement for the first 3 hours, right? But reimbursement after 3 hours, correct? Or none at all?
I think it's 4 hours and no reimbursement.
Ever, or no reimbursement for the first 4 hours?
No reimbursement for the first 4 hours.
Okay.
Then what's the difference between your 3 hour?
Well,
No.
it used to be 3 hours.
You just quoted it wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
It used to be 3 hours, and then the fire chiefs voted to accept 4 hours with reimbursement. And then the Forest Service came back in the middle of the fires last year and said it's 4 hours with no reimbursement from initial attack. So if we're there for 4 hours, we don't get paid anything. If we're there for 4 hours and 10 minutes, we get paid for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So Hay Fork has signed, but nobody else yet?
Hay Fork and High and Palm have signed for, that's what they reported out on Tuesday, is that Hay Fork and High and Palm signed. There was a question as if Douglas City had signed or not yet, but nobody in the room could answer that question.
We'll find out at the fire chiefs on Monday.
Yeah. And that was kind of my line of thinking, is that in this, you know, how do we support our volunteer fire departments? How do we build better initial attack locally? So I'm gonna leave that unless people want to comment on that, but just for us to think about, and we can bring back bring that back at the next meeting to dig more deeply once people have a time to think about it a bit?
Well, I can give you an update, actually.
Okay.
So, Trinity Center had written a letter to Congressman Huffman, Vilsack, and Randy Moore, expressing concern about the lack of reimbursement to the time of initial attack. And so the Shasta Trinity understands the concern. You know, that Trinity County is mostly national forest. It's all volunteer fire departments with not a lot of money. And so it's a lot of pressure to put on the local volunteer fire departments to respond to fires on essentially the bulk of the county. And so Rachel Berkey understands. She wrote a letter to the regional office asking them to send a request for a waiver to the national office. I just heard back from her yesterday saying that she was still trying to get an answer, and she was trying to get that for me by the time we have our chiefs meeting on Monday. But in the meantime, I got a letter back from Jerome Perez, who is the fire director for the Forest Service nationally, and saying that as far as they're concerned nationally, 12 hours with no reimbursement for initial attack is the national standard. And so they think they're giving us a break. So anyway, the local forest is still pushing for us, but I don't know that they're going to be able to get anything going. So it's probably so for CAL FIRE, what it means is that a lot of the local fire departments are not going to sign the Forest Service cooperative agreement. They are going to be hoping that CAL FIRE will be the one ordering them to respond. Because you guys are great. It's only 2 hours and it's reimbursable.
Thanks for that. Actually, just sent out an email. I think you guys probably got it. We're prepping our agreements for this next coming year, and we'll talk about it Monday night at the meeting too. Titus will be there talking about the OES, some of the OES rate changes. And my goal is to have all of the districts in the county with an assistance by hire agreement with me. So even if I cannot order you to an FRA fire, I can at least order you to one of mine. And there has been some grumblings as far as, I mean, it's been talked about for a long time. So I don't know. I mean, there could be an opportunity. Don't put me on trial for it, but in the next so many years that you could see us maybe running more private land fires that are in the federal DPA now. But it's private land. So I don't know. That's a long ways from now. But the overall goal is that I'll have contracts in place, makes things a lot easier. When things are going on, I can make a quick phone call and get you assigned.
Great, thanks. Truly, you guys are awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Yes. So then, all right, so then we're going to move on to, unless anybody had any questions on that. Anybody have any questions then on the cooperative agreements for initial attack? And I will say Amelia's correct. The Forest Service, I apologize to Tara, took a lot of heat at the Trinity Center community meeting. And it was because people that lived in Coffee Creek were there, whose homes burned, who were very upset about the incident management team's actions during the river complex. And unfortunately, Tara didn't have anything to do with that. So she was very gracious, and I said she took a lot of heat. And so, but what can you do? People get emotional when their homes burn down. So
We heard that again at the Hayfork meeting, that they weren't happy with the rotation of the teams, and they also weren't happy with the quality of teams last year from the Monument Fire. And I think Alaska is always going to receive heat until something changes, unfortunately. So hopefully these local area advisors will help bridge that and do what they can. We know that they can't do it all, but hopefully we can bridge some of these issues.
Just as a corollary to that, I was at the Forest Service is working with their consultant, is working on the potential operational delineations, the pods, which are essentially kind of creating a mapping system for the incident management teams that come in that say, here is where the fuel breaks, fire breaks, roads, whatever are, and here is kind of where you can start trying to come up with your strategy. And Mike, you were there, right? I think you're muted. So anyway, there was a pods meeting in Hayfork, and so one of the major complaints at the pods meeting was, how do you make sure that the incident management teams actually use this mapping information that the locals are trying to provide to them? So I think that's just a continuing theme.
I'm going to take that on myself, and as I back all of these local area advisors, I see it as my role as the Fire Safe Council coordinator to champion our local data, champion our local resources, and back the local area advisors and say, these are the trusted individuals. This is who the county has chosen to speak, and this is what we would like to collaborate on.
Well, and my main comment at the pods meeting was they had not incorporated any of the activities that have been completed or are anticipated under the CWPP in their delineations. So anyway, they're doing their own mapping. Okay. My apology. Excuse me.
Oh, hi, this is Rick. Carol, I'm just wondering, I heard from you and from others up there in the community about that meeting and the concerns, and as you shared the frustration, what I'm wondering is there some additional step that should be taken by someone to kind of close this up and heal the wounds a little bit, let the folks feel like they're heard and that there's some better expectation in the future? Or is it just need to be left alone, they vented, and we can move on?
I think Pat might express this better, but the bottom line is there's really no one that you can complain to at the Forest Service about the kind of action that they took during the river complex that the locals think resulted in a lot of unnecessary damage. So Pat, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is the complete isolation of the different silos, in the Forest Service. It's the same with the law enforcement, that they are independent of the hierarchy of the forest or the ranger district or even the regional forester. They're independently run. And I think that, in the heat of the moment, the Board of Supervisors letter that was sent out, while it was maybe a little too heated, in its wording, kind of got the point across to Randy Moore, the idea that you almost need an independent review or investigation when something like this happens, where a backburn or effort kind of gets away from them. But there's been, I don't believe, Jill could correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe there's been any real response back from the Washington office of the Forest Service. It's a difficult nut to crack because of the independence of those incident management teams they're and independent from each other also. I mean, not only independent program overall, but that they operate independent of each other by and large. I mean, Carol was part of the every morning Zoom calls. And when it was time for a changeover, I mean, it was, here we are, now we're not, now we're gone. You know, there's not a lot of transition even.
And so even the battalion chiefs and such that we met at some of these USFS meetings, they really have no influence either.
No.
Okay.
No, they don't. And to follow up on that, I did have this conversation further with Rachel, and no, I don't think that to my knowledge, there hasn't been any real response from Washington. The rest of that story, Rick, is that it's really hard I'm working super hard at creating great relationships with Tara and Rachel. And I love that. I spent the whole day Friday in the forest with Tara, and I'll see Rachel again on the 6th. And so their disconnect, like that letter was painful to Rachel, though it was really needed at the national level. And what I kept trying to communicate to Rachel is there's got to be some way that you can interface on how those management teams work. Even the fact that they only stayed 2 weeks, like the first one was great and things were really going well. And then they like leave. And I can't tell you how many meetings I sat in that were like, this is nothing but housekeeping. Like we were already on this page, then you remove them, bring in the next team, and you have to go through that whole process all over again. It just doesn't make sense. And the answer I got back was, well, you know, sometimes people have a certain way of looking at how you're going to attack that situation. And if it isn't going well, it's good to trade it out. And that's a reasonable argument. But what about when that's not the case and it is going well? So it's just there has to be more connection between, say, even at Rachel's level and Washington. Like I see that as the huge gap.
I mean, the river complex was even more complicated in the sense that as a fire, it was a Klamath Forest led effort, even though it burned into Trinity County and the Shasta Trinity. So our leadership was really on the sidelines. And early on, I mean, for the first, 2 or 3 weeks of the fire burning and having weekly community meetings, the forest supervisor who was at those meetings was from the Klamath National Forest, not from the Shasta Trinity even. So this compartmentalization is, I mean, on lots of different levels. I mean, that's why we have something like a fire safe council to kind of break through some of those walls.
And that was the same thing for the August complex too. It was the Mendocino National Forest leading it. And then once it spilled over, then the Styx River and Shasta Trinity could get on board. But still, it was the Mendocino paying the bill and running the show.
So, but bottom line here, to answer Rick's question, Amelia is going to try to help by meeting with the Coffee Creek folks. But there's nothing that we can really do to help them out, because I just don't see any way that they're going to get any real response from the Forest Service in terms of what happened, why, and we're sorry. They're never going to do that. So.
Okay. All right. Well, and sorry if I was hijacking things, and maybe Amelia, I'll follow up with you later, see if there's any kind of brainstorming. And I know Jill's doing a lot of work. Maybe the three of us can brainstorm a little.
Larry has something.
Larry, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in that, stepping back a minute and looking at it, the trajectory of this is bad, because there was horrible mistakes made during August complex. No lessons were learned at all. And then they turned around and repeated them all for River and Monument. So I think that's what's most concerning to me, is that there was a lot of complaints about August complex. It seems like they went unheard, and then they turned around and did it all over again. And I'm deathly afraid that that's what we're going to see again this year and the next year.
Yep, we're there.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Yeah, so we'll hope that our local area advisors and stuff, having a more active fire safe council interfacing during the, with the IMTs and having, the CWPP right there, where they can put it in, having our evacuation zones done. I mean, so we can really look like we know our stuff, is going to help them.
Well, are they going to listen to the local area advisors?
So some of the teams did. Some of the teams that I talk to every week listened to me. The IMT, the 3 teams listened. The IMT 2 team level 2 teams, no. All right, but that leads us into the next topic. Oh, sorry, Jerry. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that they're listening now. I mean, but the history goes way back to the Sims fire in Higham, when they first started with local area representatives, and they never listened and started backfires in the middle of the afternoon when the wind came up the canyon. So there's a long history of that being in silos and not listening to local people who know the environment.
Which that's the same exact sentiments of the other 3 fires is afternoon backfiring.
Right.
And they don't even listen to CAL FIRE, I will tell you. So the river complex, when it blew up, CAL FIRE that morning kept saying, are you sure you have enough resources? We don't think this is a good idea. Their representative kept saying, I don't think this is a good time to do it. And they did it anyway. So they don't even listen to CAL FIRE.
Yeah, Mark Lancaster was up there by Big Flat when they started that fire up there. Didn't listen to him, and I've done management plans for a landowner in Coffee Creek where they backfired through his place, killed everything, burned everything, and also for one over by Xenia, and they backfired through his place and killed a whole bunch of his overstory conifers. So, and they're all very upset with, and I think it was the Alaska crew that in both places.
Yeah. Okay, well, enough venting.
Yeah, sorry.
We're all on the same page here. So let's be prepared. Let's talk about evacuation zones.
All right, so currently we're finishing collecting all of the updates from the chiefs, and then Kelly's also taking a look at the zones that were prepared by Butte Search and Rescue for Trinity County Sheriffs. We're going to be having a meeting with the sheriffs the first week in May, and my intent is to have the final draft and the approved, accepted, everybody is happy, let's move forward at Wildfire Preparedness Day. So have it printed for people to look at, figure out where they live. That's our goal. We'll see if we can get there. The next thing though, no matter if we meet that goal or not, we already are drafting the evacuation zone flyer, the brochure that's going to go out to every residence, every mailbox, PO box, you name it, in Trinity County. And so that we're looking to have printed and mailing out June 1st. I'm also going to have extras to hand out to the VFDs for all of the evacuation zones in their districts. And then I'm going to, what's leading into my next thing in a second. So I'll hold my next thought. So those, we're continuing to move forward. We're making great work. Denise has put a lot of time to get those cleaned up so that we don't have somebody's parcel split in half. Their house is on one side, it's not evacuated, but the other side of the parcel is, or vice versa, and they just walk across and say, I'm no longer in my evacuated area, but I am. We're also going to, in that brochure, include our evacuation go bag lists, so lists for humans and for pets. We have also recently just purchased bags, which we hope they should be here on May 6th before Wildfire Preparedness Day, but evacuation go bags for both lists as well, printed on the bags for humans and people to hand out. The Lewiston Sparkies are going to be doing the what goes in it and what does not run through. So we're gonna, if those get in time, we're gonna sit those at their booth and they're gonna help give those out. Also, hopefully, we'll give those out to some of the VFDs so that they'll have them on hand. When a zone gets a warning, they can kind of see if people need them. We ordered 1,000 of each version to start with, so we'll see how those go. The routes, we're still waiting to hear from California Fire Safe Council on if they have funded our grant request to do the routes, including signage. I had a very nice meeting in Hayfork. We talked a lot about this, that the routes are actually already identified. They're just buried somewhere in county records. So I'm gonna go take a deeper dive and try to find where those routes are and where we've lost them, because the Forest Service noted that they get priority funding to maintain the secondary routes. And they've been using that for many years, but nobody actually has the full document, at least in Hayfork, they didn't.
Is that separate from the last local hazard mitigation plan evacuation routes? Because there was a map with routes in that document.
Don't know. I will start looking there and then move on. Okay.
I just saw that map like within the past week or two.
Okay. They are asking, and we even had the proposal for and donation of a place to put it. They would like to have a metal plasma engraved or whatever it is that cuts the holes out, printed sign or cut sign in next to Wiley's grocery store. They would like to have a map of their priority evacuation routes with a like, you are here, and nothing else on it, but just identifying their evacuation routes on a big old sign, concrete in the ground, the end. So nothing fancy, just cut out and name the primary evacuation routes and show if you're going north or south. That's all they want. So I don't have money for that, but I will see what we can do. But I thought that was a great idea, and we can take that, and if we get the funding, we did include signage in there. And so if we get the funding, then we could easily produce that sign and then also look at extrapolating that for other communities. It was also proposed to work with the Hayfork High School to use their plasma cutter to do it. So that was a good meeting.
How do you deal with, evacuation routes vary depending on where the fire is?
Yeah. So they have identified primary and secondary routes, is what it sounded like, that they had primary north, south, east, west routes, and then secondary north, south, east, west routes. So it would just make people think and get them to prepare for it. What we're doing on our maps, on our brochure, so you have, here's your list of go things, here's the standardized language for what an evacuation warning means, what's an evacuation order means, what shelter in place means, what a hard closure, soft closure, resident only closure, what all those means, and the state verified color coordination as well. So if you look at a map, what color is evacuated, order, warning, all of those as well will also be included on that page. On the inside, you have your big map. It has your zone of, I live here, this is where your house is, and it's going to say map your evacuation routes. And then we'll say like map 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 routes, so that you know different ways to get out depending on where the fire is coming. For some people, they only have one route. Denny's got one route unless they're taking an old hiking trail or a Jeep trail or going somewhere else. But other places have more opportunities, and so we're going to encourage them. But what did come up at the Hayfork meeting is many of the new residents don't know the back roads. They don't know the older routes. So just even once they get off their hard copy map, they're not going to know where to go. And so that's just something that over time, we as a group need to work together and find a solution to encouraging and more thoughtful planning for people to do that. But for right now, we've got the smaller scale of draw the evacuation route out of your zone. That at least gets them out of their zone. And it will also have the link in there to find neighboring zones and look at those. Okay. So waiting on funding for the routes. And we only asked for half of the allowable amount to see if we could squeak it out. They're going to do a pilot program this year, and So if we don't make this round, we might be able to make the next round. So still waiting on that.
All right, any questions on evacuation zones and the routes work that Emilio's doing?
I got a question. I have not seen these maps and I'm wondering what it shows for Indian Creek watershed. Because there are two ways out of here. My concern has always been that a fire gets started on the west end and comes up and cuts off the main county road going that way, and people will have to evacuate by driving up around Bully Chute. And
So
there's no telling what?
So the maps that are out right now are just the zones. So like if you're in a certain zone within that geographic area, you would be under an evacuation warning or an evacuation order or whatever. So it's not providing the routes, this first initial mapping. It's just saying which zone you're in. The routes are the next step if we get the Fire Safe Council grant.
And I'll make sure that the gates that we have mapped for our VFDs, our map books are in that so that they know how many gates they would need to get through, or, you know, oh, they can't go that way because there is a gate. So we'll make sure that those are mapped.
But that's on the,
great.
Yeah, that's on the route.
that's on the routes part. That's on the secondary, the next step. Right now, what we're trying to do is just,
Well, they'll be on the zone map so that when people map their own
okay,
routes, they won't get stuck at a gate.
perfect. Does that answer your question, Kenneth?
Yep, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions on evacuation zones or routes? Okay, so June, July, Community Engagement Initiative.
Woo! So I think it's been bubbling up between many different meetings, organizations that there's been just lack of overall engagement or attention. The paper is no longer working to get the word out for people to show up at meetings. Social media is not working. So the Hay Fork meeting inspired me to do a round robin and go sit at post offices and grocery stores. We're going old school. We're gonna pop up a table. I'm gonna sit there, have some chats. I'll be at the post offices during lunch hour, so when people are flowing in and out, and then go to the grocery store for the evening hours when people get off work and they're going to get their dinner or whatever. So I've already identified the dates that I'm gonna be doing that. We're just working on placing the dates with which communities I'm going to go to. So this is going to be in lieu of some of the community meetings that I'm not having because I'm having trouble getting dates and times with chiefs to get that squared away. And so we're gonna do it. So all of our Firewise communities, I've got 13 days identified between June 1st and July 15th. And I'm just gonna go sit and talk and have a good time. I'll take all my brochures and flyers and programming because most of the local area advisors and neighborhood ambassadors that have signed up are from the community meetings that I went to. So I need to get out there. The Fire Safe Council needs to get out there. So we're gonna get out there. We will also hopefully have our Grizzly Corps member on board in September. We haven't received our orientation or interview materials for them yet, but we'll be interviewing in May/early June, and then we'll have somebody on. So then they'll take over some of that role after the summer. But you know, this fire season could be, we don't know what it's gonna hold. And so I'd like to get out there ahead of it instead of just sitting and putting it off to the fall. So that's what we're working on. So it'll be like late afternoons into the evenings that I'll be out chatting with people. If anybody wants to come, I'll publish the date and you can show up at the booth and hang out or not. I've already got people in Hay Fork that want to come sit with me while I'm out there. And so, you know, this is all about networking and community engagement. So that's what we're doing.
Do Trailhead Pizza Night?
I can do whatever you want.
So I've got a comment. The best place to set up at Douglas City is by the post office. And there's certain days, I'm not sure what they are, but you could talk to the postmaster when there seems to be a lot of traffic at the post office.
Payday.
And yeah, I think it is related to that. So that would be the best place for there.
Sounds great. I am gonna work with, we are gonna ask those questions when we try to coordinate the days. I also have 3 days in a row that I'm gonna try to spend in the Mad River Ruth Zinnia district so that I don't have to drive back and forth 3 times. So we're gonna try to do some coordination that way. I have a couple Fridays identified, so those are always good grocery store days. And the very last day is a Saturday, which might be in Newville. We'll see how it all goes, because that's during summer day camp. So I want to be closer to support my other staff during those times in case I have to run away.
Run away.
I know, sometimes it happens.
No
Emergency.
honeymoon.
That's in June. Yeah, long weekend in June. Okay. I'm trying. I'm fitting it all in, Carol. We're making it all work.
All right, so now do you have a coordinator's report?
No, that was my coordinator's report for this month. So now we'll put all this together in one line item for next month.
Right.
And moving forward. Thank you.
Okay.
Can you email me that when you're done?
All right,
Thank
so any updates on grants that we know are at? So the rural fire capacity grants from CAL FIRE are due May 4th. That's the only one I know of that it helps the local volunteer fire departments a lot. Any other grants that anybody knows of to share?
We are getting the funding for the storm cleanup downriver from CAL FIRE. And we're working on the contract with Humboldt County for that right now. We all got our Title III funds, so we're all moving forward on those projects. Is there anything else new that we need to talk about?
I heard that the wildfire resilience grants, or I saw that somebody got awarded $3.5 million down in the North Bay. So I don't know if that was all dropped at one time and we haven't heard.
Is that the block
ours.
grants?
Yes.
Oh.
I know that somebody did receive $3.5 million out of 10.
CAL FIRE, do you know if the block grants were all awarded?
I don't know. I could run down right next door and ask and be back to you guys in just a couple minutes on that.
Right on.
And Pat, so on the Title II RAC, we have a meeting coming up, but we don't have any updates on funding, when it might be available.
Correct. We don't know the amount or when it will be available for us to begin our process.
Well, John did say that it was going to be 2 years of allocations.
Yeah, he did say that.
So is that another $1 million?
Not quite. It'd probably be-
No, not quite, because we had 2 years plus some carryover last time.
Okay, so
I'm
800,000.
thinking at 700 to 800,000.
Okay. All right. Okay. So we'll move then into project updates. And so maybe we'll wait till Aaron comes back before we do CAL FIRE. So I don't see anybody from Lower Trinity prescribed burn, right?
No.
Taylor, would you like to give an update on what NRCS is up to? And welcome.
Yeah, I don't have too much to report besides it's kind of the sad fact that we're not getting a lot of forestry projects funded right now, and I don't exactly know why. And so I'm working with the planners in my office to kind of figure out how we can make applications more competitive and how to make it happen. But yeah, right now, we just have projects that aren't forestry related that got funded most recently. So, and I will be attending the event on May 7th in Weaverville with you guys. So I'm excited to meet you all in person. But that's all I got. Thanks.
Good, Great, thank you. Likewise. Thanks for putting up with us. Let's see, how about Mike Aronson from SPI? Do you have any updates from SPI on what you guys are up to?
I'm not exactly sure where Keith has left off with you guys on these previous meetings. We've completed some mastication work off of Mike's Peak recently and up behind Douglas City, with some mastication of a fuel break, if you will, along some of those main ridges. I'm currently myself, so my job is to maintain and help design and implement these fuel breaks across company grounds. So I cover the Weaverville, Coast, Reading, and Bernie districts. Myself, I am currently working on a project that I want to try and get some funding for, involving road systems on our ground and Forest Service and other private or other grounds. My point of view is that we build these fuel breaks, we have to get to them. And if our roads are overgrown and not maintained and not passable for the engines to get through, we need to address that, take care of that. And that should grow into and around communities too, as well as you guys were talking about evacuation routes. Something that's big to me is the roads need to be passable and wide, so people can get out and so the engines can get in. So that's something that's important to me. So I'm working on that and in the very beginning stages of that, see if I can get some funding to start a project and grow that project. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay, thank you. And just to let you know, so Keith, SPI was very helpful last year during the river complex in essentially letting us bulldoze 2 temporary evacuation routes out of Trinity Center, because right now there's only one official way in and out. And Keith had told me we could keep the main one if we installed a ranch gate to limit access, to prevent people from just using it willy-nilly. And so with our Title III grant, we did get money to install that ranch gate. So we will be coordinating with Keith or whoever he wants at SPI to install the gate so that we don't have people, using that. It will open it if there's a fire and we need it as an evacuation, but the rest of the time it would limit people coming across SPI ground.
Does that come out like near Norwegian Ranch or where does it come out at?
Yeah.
That's good information. I'll pass that on to Keith.
Yeah, we really appreciate you guys letting us put those in, and we want to try and maintain them but not have them abused. So.
Right, exactly.
Okay, let's see. So I don't think Aaron's not back yet.
No, sorry, I am back.
You're back.
Yeah,
All right, so for you and Nick, do you want to give us some updates from CAL FIRE?
Oh, I was just going to give you the update about that grant question you guys just asked.
Perfect.
I just talked with, went down to talk with our unit forester who helped review the grants. I know they are still working on reviewing of grants right now, for allotting. I don't know when the end date is on that. And since I didn't get a chance to talk with them, I don't really have anything else.
Okay, thank you for checking on that. So do you guys, Dave or anybody, have any updates then on what CAL FIRE status is in terms of engines, staffing, projects, kind of just where you're at on those?
I can speak to the projects. Nick will have to speak to all the engine and the fire side.
Great.
But currently still in Trinity County, the only CAL FIRE project that we have, other than assisting with RCD or Watershed Center, the only project that we have is the Big Creek vegetation treatment program. we have that one done. And so the rest of our projects are in Shasta County. So yeah, that's what we got. I know that the unit's really interested in, getting Big Creek completed, or at least starting the process of getting portions of that burned. So we're working on that right now.
Okay,
Oh, and then as far as the grants, I think you were talking about the fire prevention grants, right? Or you talking about another set of grants, Carol?
No, that was a wildfire resilience
Block grant.
block grant.
Yeah, so I think what Aaron was talking about was the fire prevention grants that everybody applied for last month or whatever, 2 months ago. Right, so those ones, I think they're gonna have a final list, I believe at the end of next month.
okay. Nick, do you have a status on the stations and engines and stuff?
Yeah, so at this point, we are still one engine staffed at Weaverville. We're kind of guessing still probably the middle of this next month, we might be going to one engine per station. That'll kind of get pushed by weather and activity. But once we go to full swing, we'll have the 4 engines in the battalion, 1 in Hayfork, 1 in Weaverville, and 2 at Fawn Lodge. The Hayfork deal, because we lost our property that the station's currently on. So we're in the process of leasing another, the church out there, and that's going forward pretty well. We have a meeting on Monday, so I should be able to give a decent update to the Chiefs Association Monday night. Cruise staffing for the inmate crews is dwindling as it has been dying slowly. The unit did get approval to staff we are staffing 2 firefighter crews in the unit. So it's 40 people. So they're in training now and will be for the next, probably about a month. But there'll be another resource, and the rest of the unit or rest of the state is upstaffed as well. The department as a whole is doing a tremendous upstaff, really, with people to staff the equipment and whatnot. They're fast forwarding, pushing through a bunch of academies to bolster the staffing. So that's cruising forward. The thing that I could speak to, the only thing I could really speak to as far as for the grants, honestly, I prefer to stay away from all that, and I do stay away from it. I like to keep my job a little bit simple in the fact that I'm in the fire suppression side. But they do talk to me sometimes about it, and really the overall goal right now of the state, and it's common sense and it makes sense, that they're trying to get projects that, one, are achievable and maintainable, and that also coincide with other projects that are going to be let's say worthwhile, essentially, that they're in good locations, they're on good ridges, good spurs, that will help impact of the communities, both protecting the forest from the community if there's a fire in the community, and protecting the communities from if there's a fire in the forest that comes in. So that we had somebody hit us up a while ago, and they were back and forth with me, and I went in and spoke to our forestry guys that really review the grants, and he's like, well, what do you think? And this is what I'm seeing. And realistically, that was the biggest part of driving it home, is that the projects are worth doing, and then they can be maintained and will be maintained, and that they will encompass each other, trying to get away from a little spot here, a little spot there, a little spot that really never ties in and does anything as a whole for you, both for just protecting like I said, the forest or the community. Also, once we go into fire attack, it gives us those areas to put into the plan. And then I guess that would be it. I don't know if Dave, like I said, just that the project and the work that's being done out there, just that it's getting done getting done well. I ran crews for a few years. We did a lot of fuels work. I would say now within your prescription, take as much as you can, and make it as thin as you can, because we're just we have too much fuel and it's all starving for moisture. So that's what I have for you. If you have any other questions.
Nope, good advice. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Okay, so Erin, you mentioned something about an update on the defensible space teams inspections.
Yeah. So as far as where we're at on it, or as far as the new law that's in effect with it January 1st?
I guess my first question is, so do you have defensible space teams, inspection teams coming up to Trinity County?
Yeah, so we have visited Trinity County. The goal of my department is to try to hit each structure within every 3 years. That's outside of city districts. And so I don't know, and maybe Nick would be able to tell on this, but I think Weaverville is responsible for their own inspections. Have you guys seen that in the past?
No.
Okay. So I'll double check on that. But the goal is to years.
4290, you're talking about defensible space inspections, right?
Yeah. 4291, yeah.
Yeah, so no, that's all on us.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks. So with that, we try to hit each structure every 3 years. The hard part we have going to Trinity is the fact that we have downtime. I have been in communication with Chief Chiponi here and going about talking and having the engine crews go out and do some of that. But with the fire behavior we've been experiencing, our goal is to go out and achieve a certain amount per month, but I don't foresee us always making that due to fire behavior. So, but yes, I have 5 DSIs assigned to me right now that they're out 4 days a week, 10 hours a day, and doing those inspections. The best way, I think, for us to get to your neighborhood is for actual calls,
right?
Contacting me or contacting them through me, and us, like for complaints, it's very complaint driven where we go. So
if I'm not mistaken, the complaint line is still the 2418 number, and it gets shipped back to the back, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So everybody listening, as far as for Battalion 6 Trinity County, that is the case. Since I've been there since 08, we definitely had times where there was actually a lull in the beginning and the end of the summer, which hasn't existed in about the last 5 years, where that was it worked out really well, actually. We'd use that as area orientation and training, and we had maps built of locations in the county that we were rolling around and had on a rotation, and then things went sideways. That is on our, we'll call it our to-do list that we have at the board at the station, that's always full. Like Aaron said, really the best thing to do, and it's kind of been our standard always, is a complaint called in. And what we do in the direction to my folks are, if somebody calls in like, hey, I want you to look at my neighbor's house, then we do that street, for multiple reasons. One, a lot of times you get people calling in, and they're rightly so, their place looks good. But the other part of it is a lot of times the complainer is just as much in violation. So you get to give them that as well and tell them thank you for calling you out. So yes, I'm really sorry that is the situation at the moment. But that is definitely the best And that actually is a good idea. Maybe Amelia and Carol as something we could bring up, try to not let me forget for Monday night, as maybe some of the districts have, we'll call them like target locations, where the fellas could do the most good with the time that they use when they go out. And then again, speaking from just, I've told you guys before, I'm just kind of the knuckle dragger operations kind of guy. The hard part is about the defensible space inspections. A lot of times, because I did that for a lot of years as well as a VIP, the information is good and a lot of people take it well and you actually see results from it. But I would say that's maybe 10%. The other 90% are like, yeah, okay, thanks. And there's no bite to it. We don't have the follow-up. There's very rarely people are getting, I'll say, fined or in trouble for the situation.
That also
But
on the county, and I would encourage you guys to take that to the sheriff's department, because it falls underneath Trinity County's vegetation management ordinance very clearly, that 4291 inspections and what is found in those inspections can fall into the nuisance ordinance for vegetation management. I think it's item C or D on the 7 different definitions of nuisance on the Trinity County Vegetation Management Ordinance. And I can also provide the second update on that, is which we're working with the sheriffs to review the current management ordinance and see about getting code enforcement to actually enforce it.
yeah, we have no issue with that being part of the process. Just reminding the folks like, hey, when we do a 4290 inspection, well, it's all electronic now, but I'm sure we can get copies of it and we could deliver them to the office and go, hey, here's your next list of problem areas. Like I said, just maybe that would be the best way, is like I said at the Chiefs meeting, having like, hey, here's a couple of our areas that we're like, man, this is really big issue. And that way I can give the folks appointed, or my crew is appointed, like, hey, go knock out this area. And or when we get calls, that's the other thing is we get phone calls, and then that's something good for you to know up there as well, Carol, for our areas that are not and if I say DPAs and SRA, FRA, hopefully that's understood. If not, I can explain that. But Carol, you're up there in private lands, but in the federal DPA, which is direct protection areas. So they're supposed to provide the wildland protection there. They don't do 4291 inspections, but if there's a phone call from Coffee Creek, Trinity Center, areas of Junction City, High and Palm, we get that complaint, it comes to the station and we get somebody out to do that road is the process.
So how about this? So Aaron, can you put your contact information, your email and the phone number for complaints in the chat?
Yep.
That'd be great. And then, yes, so I will send you, once I have the your email address, I will send you a copy of the vegetation management ordinance that Amelia was talking about. So you'll know kind of how we are trying to deal with this issue, you know, in terms of ramping up local enforcement that's complementary to what you guys are doing.
Right.
Yeah. And thank you. I didn't realize you guys had your own vegetation ordinance there in Trinity County. I knew of the one here in Shasta County, but I had never heard of yours. So definitely, if I could get a copy of that, that helps me hold that standard. Because here in Shasta County, we do send referrals to the DA office for people that are not following up on their cleaning up in the yard.
And
so,
yeah. So it's been in place for a long time. It's just we recently unburied it, you know, in response to the fires and stuff. So so we will be trying to figure out how to implement it. What it does right now is if they don't respond and do the fuel reduction abatement, you know, then the county can hire someone to do it and then put the cost of that cleanup on their tax bill.
Nice.
So anyway, but we're taking a look at it because it's been on the books for a while. It's just been sitting there to try to figure out the best way to implement it.
And Randy, so that you know, the RCD and the Watershed Center have been working on pilot funding to do the implementation so that it's not for low income, disabled and seniors, so that it's not a burden for that group as well. So people that can pay for the work themselves should be doing that, but the people that can't, it's not going to become a further burden on them. And so that's what the RCD is working on. So there will be no reporting from the RCD or from the Trinity County Fire Safe Council. We will be working on supporting those in violation to come into compliance, but we will not be making any of the reports.
That's awesome. Because when I was doing inspection like 05, 6, I mean, hundreds of people would be, you know, your grandma that doesn't have anybody to help them anymore to get, you know, the fuels around their house. They can barely get to their front door, and you're supposed to be there writing them a violation. It was heartbreaking.
Right. So and just one last point on this. I mean, I think follow-up has been the issue because I know in Trinity Center, people had complained and CAL FIRE came out and issued a citation, but never did, you know, weren't able to come back and follow up. And so we need to figure out a better way to kind of follow up on these.
I need about 15 to 20 more defensible space inspectors permanent.
Okay. All right.
Sorry. Yeah. Because that you write it and then it's a month later or whatever, and that puts you in August and those guys are gone or whatever. And then you come back and it's like, oh yeah, we got to go back and look in that file and we've already missed the date.
Yeah.
So there is some help with that. Nick, I haven't talked to you about this yet, but under our new electronics that we're using or app that we're using, it does throw flags for dates for us. And so all it is a matter of my DSIs or myself getting on and it'll throw all those dates that were past due and remind us to go look at those now. So that is a new benefit that we do have. It just came into play about 2 months ago. So that should help us.
You're making me feel like a dinosaur. This is awesome.
I know it's great.
No, we need you. Okay, let's see. Next thing, so for Trinity Center Volunteer Fire Department, I don't really have any updates. I wish the Forest Service was on the line because I really wanted to thank them. We had asked them to deal with a road that needed maintained. So it's Guy Covington Drive. It ends county maintenance and then it goes, I think Mike will recognize this. It goes to an SPI access road, the Bowerman Boat Ramp, Alpine View Campground. It was totally overgrown. We initially applied for Title III money and Forest Service said, no, we'll take care of it. And sure enough, they came with a mower, a side mower, and mowed all along the side of the road. So you can drive down the road now and not scratch your engine. And people aren't complaining anymore about their boats and their campers getting scratched. And so anyway, I was going to give the Forest Service some kudos, but they're not here. Too bad.
No, I think that's good. I'm gonna interject one more time and then I'll be done. Kids will be home. But I do agree that the Forest Service is a very large agency. My agency's big, but theirs is even bigger. And I totally understand the frustration of government. And I'm a small scale compared to what they have to deal with. And I worked with personally, and I have for many years, all of our local Forest Service folks. And many of them are really, as you know, most of you know them as well. They're good people and they really want to do the right thing, and they are handcuffed. and not supported. Region 5 in general, and hopefully not speaking out of line, probably get myself in trouble again, but they're not really supported by the rest of the Forest Service. So like I said, I think it's important for us out in the community, and I get it, people get really frustrated because they lost what they had, but to know really to try not to take it out on the local folks, because they are trying to do what they can.
Yep. Yep, they got it done. So anyway, I appreciate that. So next on the project updates is Board of Supervisors. Have anything to add, Jill?
Just a hopeful project maybe for the future.
Okay.
You want me to talk about it?
You
Okay.
All right, Kelly's talking for Jill.
So Nick Goulet and I have been speaking with a couple of the supervisors, including Jill, about the potential of securing more funding for Trinity County out of the emergency response funding that's being, I guess, brought in for the Carr Fire specifically. I think generally, but like for that one specifically, because the Forest Service has approached both of our organizations and asked like what our capacity, what we could reasonably expect to be able to increase our capacity to you know, to secure some of that funding on the Shasta T side of things. And the thought for this particular thing would be to bring the county in also as a partner through specifically the Good Neighbor Authority to be able to provide more of that $20 million that they anticipate having for the Carr Fire, for example, and bringing it into certain departments where they would have capacity to either do work internally and or contract out, like doing, like say, bringing funding to DOT to help with road work as a result of the fires, for example. So we're trying to work with, so Nick and I are working with Jill and Jeremy Brown to try to craft some language to approach the forest about, you know, like what could reasonably be expected that the county could do as a separate entity and partner to secure some of that additional funding.
Cool.
So the good news there is it looks like the county is ready to hire the DOT department head. So that should happen here in the next week or two. And maybe I'm speaking too soon, but it's too exciting.
It's too exciting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Mhm. So then there would be continuity through DOT, whereas I don't see David being able to take that on.
Right. And part of this also is contingent on if that was the case, then there's also the thought that, you know, we could possibly reinvigorate the natural resources department within the county. And with him freed up and having a desire to actually move into that, this is something that we're, I don't know, it's maybe under the table stuff.
That's more of a hopeful.
That's a hopeful thing, but it's still kind of one of those things where if things line up, there could be a potential to bring a lot more money into the county for fire recovery specifically.
Okay, so any questions for Jill or Kelly about what the county is doing? All right, Pat or Jerry, how about Trinity County Collaborative?
Well,
Or
Jerry just signed off, but Larry is also on. So we haven't had a collaborative meeting since our last Fire Safe Council meeting. Our collaborative meetings scheduled for May 20th, but we have a field trip that the email just went out to go look at West Side Plantation and pilot project next Monday, the 2nd of May. Larry, do you have any details on that?
Yeah, we're gonna go out, I think out on that area on the pilot project that's sort of High and Palms escape route there, and go out and look at both West Side units that are out there, and there's pilot project units that are out there that some have never been done, some have been completed, and and some are marked to be done. And so it's gonna take about 4 hours, we expect, and take a look at the various units and get a bigger picture of how the projects, how West Side was completed or not completed, and how the pilot project looks like it's going to go.
And I
Okay,
think there's a 9 o'clock in the morning meeting at Weaverville in Weaverville at the RCD. If there's a desire to carpool from there, and then the ranger station in Hayfork at 10 o'clock, correct, Kelly?
Correct. That's the plan.
For kind of further consolidation. I mean, it's, you know, it's not a field trip for Priuses.
Yeah, and bring rain gear too, just in case.
Yeah. And I think that's, and I'd say the other thing, we don't have any Forest Service people on, but from our last collaborative meetings in March, I think that the tone and tenor of the collaborative membership is that they're encouraged by the new leadership on the Shasta Trinity in particular. So we're hopeful that, you know, we're going to kind of get things kind of restarted and kind of back on track again.
okay. Okay. Any questions for Pat or Larry about collaborative? Okay, so then, how about Trinity County RCD?
Well, I can start for the Forest Health Program. So we have our 4 crews on, and we've been just chugging away on our two of the bigger projects we have that are funded through CAL FIRE through their California Climate Investments funding. One of the projects is in the Indian Reading Creek area, and that's all on BLM land. And we have about 24 acres done so far on that of the 50 we're shooting for, the cut pile burn project, and then later broadcast burn. And then we've been working a little bit also with our fire prevention grant, same funding on SPI land on the Little Browns Creek Road, doing cutting and chipping for an area that's there's been some public outcry about, and we've been you know, fixing it up, and it was pretty bad before. So there's about 6 acres complete out there. And then we've been working under agreement with the Watershed Center on the Tucker Hill project, which is just west of kind of the Douglas City rest stop. And they have about 7 acres or so completed in this period from the last meeting done out there. And we just started our Forest Service project in the Browns Phase 3, the timber area. So we got clearance to go work on some of the units that are out there up in the Mustard Hill area. And we just started that project this week. So I think we only have a couple acres done out there. And that's cut and pile, and then the Forest Service and us will burn those piles. And then we've had the one crew was working out in helping the BLM to open their campgrounds. And so they've done some campground cleanup in the Douglas City and Steel Bridge campground. Those campgrounds are opening, I think, this weekend. So that's I think the bulk of it. Oh, we also, with that same CAL FIRE funding, we did buy a new chipper. So we will have 3 chippers that, at least as of right now, are all operational. One of them's, you know, like 15 years old. So I don't know how much time that one has left, but we'll have 3 chippers. And so we've been, you know, setting up a lot of the stuff for the community chipping event and days for different community members that'll happen next month. And those are pretty heavily advertised at this point. So I think that's it for Forest Health, unless anybody has any questions.
So, is Guy Covington on the schedule?
So Guy Covington.
Gotta
is-
ask.
It's on the schedule, but not knowing when the funding is gonna happen makes it pretty hard to schedule that project.
Everything's been submitted to the Forest Service with regard to that project, as well as the community chipping project.
Yeah.
So there, it's in the hopper.
So
Was that a
that's
Title III project.
the Title
Title
II.
II.
Yeah.
Yeah, Title II. Yeah. So the yeah, everything's submitted for our RAC proposals for both community chipping and Guy Covington, and we will start on
So
them
they're
as
in-
we can.
They're in grants and agreements, probably somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, it's, yes, exactly.
And then I think it had happened before the last meeting, but we we were awarded a grant from the Sierra Nevada Conservancy for, it is a smaller grant to assist with the burning out of the ballpark, which I think is like around 100 acres, to assist the Forest Service in that burning. And then we'll subcontract with the Watershed Center to provide funding. So they can also assist burning, just to get training for crews and to, work together more with agency on their burning.
We've also gotten started on the Brown Space 3.
Yeah.
Mentioned
Yeah.
that
Did you
one.
mention that one earlier? Okay.
But I mean, the ballpark last month, Tim was saying he doesn't think they'll be able to meet the prescription just because of the weather. So that
Yeah.
would probably not be till
It
fall.
it wouldn't be this spring, I don't
Yeah.
think. But,
Okay.
but we don't have the funding right now. We just gotta get it. So
Right. So we just have to hope that the campers don't do their own burning this summer.
yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Um,
Other RCD?
One thing that I'll mention is I've been working with I've had several meetings with the California Association of Resource Conservation Districts, the CARCD, specifically about legislation that they're tracking and supporting in this legislative session. Of note, Senate Bill 926, which is the Prescribed Fire Liability Pilot Program, which provides prescribed fire prescribed fire claims fund, since prescribed fire is now essentially uninsurable. This bill basically allows for some level of liability protection for people, for burn associations and burn bosses that are doing this kind of work, specifically prescribed fires, for the sake of doing wildfire mitigation. And the CARCD is supporting that bill strongly.
Do you need letters of support? Yeah, do you need a letter from the Fire Safe Council?
I could certainly ask and see if that's something that we can do.
As well?
I'll inquire.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a bill by Senator Dodd in the state Senate. The other thing that I found a little bit more information about, and I'd be interested to hear if there's any chatter about this within the CAL FIRE ranks, but Assembly Bill 1717 has to do with prevailing wage and the inclusion of fuels reduction projects as prevailing wage type of work, as far as the public works are concerned. And one of the inquiries that we have had, and this was actually echoed by a number of districts that do this kind of work, there doesn't seem to be any modification in the language that would specifically include RCDs in that designation. So as it stands right now, and in regard to prevailing wage, RCDs, when they get direct funded from a state agency, do not have to use prevailing wage to pay their own employees. And so that is not the case for contractors. So if we were to contract with another entity or company, we would have to pay them prevailing wage. So it appears that the legislation, although it would have sweeping kind of impacts on the work that we all do, it doesn't necessarily impact us directly in any other fashion besides how we would subcontract.
Do you have an idea how it would affect the watershed center?
That I'm not certain about, because they're a different kind of entity.
But
I think part of our exclusion to that is because we are technically a division of the state as a governmental entity. So that's kind of where it stands right now. As I understand it.
But if we contract with the Watershed Center, then they would have to pay prevailing wage under
Right.
that contract. Yeah.
And for those that don't, for those that don't know that, like if the Watershed Center is, or we, for that matter, are employing, our sawyers for say $18 an hour, the bare minimum for prevailing wage for that same work is about $33 an hour.
So grant funding would go a lot less.
Would
a lot
go
further,
a lot- it
less
would not,
further.
yes.
And it's much higher fringe benefits as well. The proportion going to fringe, the total ends up being about $68 an hour per employee.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so if there's, at some point, if you need letters of support or concern from the Fire Safe Council, will you let Amelia know?
Yes, I'll inquire about that
Okay.
for sure.
Other RCD news? I see Marla's there, Dave.
Dave's out.
Oh, is that different Dave?
Maybe. I just said Dave's. So.
Okay, all
I
right,
think we're
so good for RCD.
Yep.
All right, Randy, welcome to the Watershed Center and the Fire Safe Council. And do you want to let us know kind of what's going on there?
Sure. Thank you for the welcome. I've been working with Dylan the past 2 weeks to get the transfer of all the information of the projects that he's been working on recently here for the Watershed Center. So I apologize, I am still getting up to speed on all the details, but I do know that we have our crews on, 2 hand crews and the mastication crew. We are working on a 3rd hand crew that's going to be working downriver under the fire prevention grant that the CD got. They'll be working along South Fork Road and in the Burnt Ranch area and kind of basing downriver there. So that'll be a 3rd hand crew, and it's mostly made up of students, so they're not fully functioning quite yet. But the other 2 crews have been mostly focusing on roads in the Hayfork Valley, Summit and Barker, and then over towards Douglas City, Deer Lick Springs, Reading Creek. We've also been doing mastication under the RCD Forest Health grant in the same area around Douglas City. I hope I'm not confusing the 2. No, that looks right. Okay. So about 40 acres of mastication have been completed, and the hand crew is currently treating areas that the masticator couldn't operate in. One thing that's been happening with the BLM is they've asked the Watershed Center to apply directly to them. So we're working on a proposal to maybe get some additional funding for the distributed parcels here in Hayfork, the BLM parcels, and some ongoing work to supplement what's been happening in Douglas City, keeping the masticator going. So I thought that was promising, and that proposal's due next week. I believe that once we're in a good place with or fully utilize the funding and Summit and Barker and Deer Lick Springs and Reading Creek, will be moving to St. John Road and Cabin Flat, which is also part of that prevention and grant that the RCD got. We're also, looks like the Title III money that we were able to get the agreements in place, and the crews will start working across Hayfork, High and Palm, and Southern Trinity. And so we're relating to that new source of funding and trying to develop plans on how to implement that. I think those are the big ticket items for the crew. I will certainly have a more robust update next month. So another piece of the puzzle is, when the as part of our forest health grants with CAL FIRE, we'll be implementing work over near Ruth with a contract to use the air curtain burner and moving material from, I didn't write down the road, I apologize, but there's a roadside treatment that we're going to be doing in conjunction with the Six Rivers. And that contract is just about ready to award. We've got 3 bids, and we're very close to being able to announce that the work will be happening. So that seemed like very good news in terms of treating some roadside fuels right up the hill from the Ruth Guard Station and that location where they're gonna be using the air curtain burner. Our forestry crews are working with the Forest Service to lay out the McFarland project, the salvage components. So that's moving forward. The ground verification, the design that I know the Forest Service has been chatting with everybody about. And so that work moving forward as well with the layout crews that we work with the Forest Service on. Okay, I think those are the big things. So again, I'm sure I'll have more information next month.
Okay, great. Any questions for Randy? No? Okay. Anybody that I missed in terms of project updates? Okay. So then I think that's a wrap for today, and the next meeting is going to be May 26th at 1 p.m. So I will see you all on that last Thursday of the month. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.